I don't normally like to focus on stuff like this because, there's a lot of negativity in the world as it is, but it feels like a worthwhile enough story to draw attention to, in large part because I think it can be kind of a reaffirmation of how important the fulfillment of some of our values are. You've probably heard of a person called Eden online, if for no other reason than because I think right now that tag is trending with something like 250,000 tweets, which is which is a lot. At least I saw it doing so yesterday. I see justice for Eden. Did we lose another trans person? Yeah, well, yes. So basically, 2 days ago, there was a prominent Twitter user, shit poster, funny lady, called Eden. I think Solaria beforehand, that was her name. Yeah, people are posting this on. Who posted a suicide note and then killed herself. I was going to read through this. We'll add prescriptions as we can. Final message. Hey, if you're reading this, I've already killed myself. I have given life every opportunity. I have given myself every chance to get better, but I couldn't do it. I wasn't strong enough. I don't think there was a universe where I was ever strong enough to survive this. Why? Right. So, we'll talk about the specifics here. Sometime in the summer, I was contacted by Michael Palico, a cybersecurity guy, through an IRL friend who claimed he was a fixer and wanted to fix the issue that was between me and my parents. I thought this was impossible. I'm trans and they are strict conservative Muslims, but I decided I would give it a shot because it can't hurt, right? Lamau. Over the next couple of months, I had called Michael Pocalico and his associate Ellen. These calls seemed innocuous and honestly pretty helpful. It was mainly questions about my safety and whether I had my needs met at the place I was staying at. Towards the end of my stay at the friend's place, I'd witnessed a traumatic event and was already in a bad place mentally. Michael took note of this and decided to push me to leave Georgia and move back to Virginia. Michael and Ellen, along with a Saudi lawyer named Bader, met me at the train station. I was taken to a hotel and allowed to experience DC. I genuinely was optimistic and believed this could work. God, I wish I wasn't so stupid. At this point, the only person in that group that I was in contact with was Bader, the Saudi lawyer. Bader, throughout this entire time, in his weird way, tried to get me to detransition. First, he pampered me. He got me an apartment temporarily. He took me out to eat. He took me to therapists. But over time, the more conversations I had with him in person, the more I realized what he was trying to do. He tried to get me to be, quote, normal. Gave me examples of feminine men and said they are transgender, but they are hiding it, that it's better to hide it. Okay. Told me stories personally about people he knew that successfully hid it. Repeated constantly that I can just hold two lives, the female me and the male me. Constantly said I looked like a man, always talked down on my appearance, bought me masculine clothing and tried to throw away all my feminine clothing. At every step of the way, he tried to detransition me. I had a breakdown over this and bombarded Michael, Pocalico, and Ellen with texts about what was happening, and they did not respond. I did not realize fast enough what was happening because I am stupid. At a certain point, I realized I was entirely dependent on Bader for food and shelter, and that if I ran away, he could easily find my location. And since I was illegal, this is critical, I would have just been deported back to Saudi Arabia. I subconsciously gave up. I was too tired. Did everything he asked, cut my hair, stopped taking estrogen, changed my wardrobe, met my dad. Then I had another breakdown. My mom kept telling me to repent or I was going to hell, and I did. I repented. So as to spare the specifics, since we have the critical information here, things got worse, and then she took her own life. Yes, she came to America for education, and her visa had expired. So yeah, that's the majority of illegal immigration, by the way. It's not people vaulting across the southern border. It's usually people overstaying visas. So the basic story here, it seems, is that Eden had parents back in Saudi Arabia who, let's say, didn't approve of her lifestyle. Her parents were withholding her passport from her and didn't approve of her lifestyle, as parents sometimes don't. But what made these parents exceptionally, specifically terrible was that they hired a fixer agency here in the United States to essentially leverage her illegal immigration status as a way of forcing her to come back home / change her lifestyle. And, obviously, forced detransition is a form of violence against trans people. As we know, as we've talked about plenty of times, in the context of the laws that Republicans are both trying to and have successfully passed, your identity is pretty core to who you are. If you ever want to imagine how important it is, or at least explain how important it is, you can imagine, if you will, a society that legally forces you to not identify with or in any way perform any of the elements of your gender identity. It's kind of weird to think about, but if you can imagine the arbitrarity and the cognitive dissonance of, like, under threat of law, me having to present as a female, certainly a difficult situation. Imagine living with that for the rest of your entire life. Very, very strange. I think it was, who's that one really early gender theorist? Like the early one, the problematic one, who proved that, people will kill themselves or be very worse off. John Money. That's right. That's right. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of people bring this person up. I think there was a tweet about this recently. A lot of people bring this person up as some kind of attack on trans people. I think what Money essentially did was he took he took a young guy and tried to force them to live as a girl, and that person ended up taking their life. Because as it turns out, forcing a person to live as a gender identity other than the one they want to is actually pretty bad for one's mental well-being. Yeah, let me see. A 1997 academic study criticized Money's works in many respects. Involuntary sex reassignment of a child, David Raymer. Yeah, not good. Because of a botched circumcision, if I recall correctly. We could go in a whole thing about how intersex people are treated, but we'll try to be a bit more specific here. I don't normally take it upon myself to talk about sad stories like this in a vacuum, because I don't actually think it's worthwhile to. People's stories, their lives, and how they end are important to those around them and important broadly under some circumstances. But if you want to go out looking for sad stories, for people's suicide notes, or for how their life came to an end, stuff like that. I mean, if you want to, you could fill your life with it. You could live your life day in and day out, from moment of waking to moment of falling asleep, just embracing stories of suffering. I don't know why you'd want to do that. It seems like a terrible idea, but if you wanted to, you could. I don't think you learn anything from that, at least not without a proper lens. Now, this person, Eden, as it turns out, was quite beloved online. I didn't know her, or at least I thought I didn't. It turns out she was responsible for a lot of really funny shit posts that I had enjoyed over, the few years. She never followed me on Twitter, which admittedly is a pretty big mark against her character, pretty big L. But aside from that, it seems like she was a wonderfully intelligent and charismatic and extremely funny person, and a shit poster. And I respect shit posters more than anyone else on that damn website, because they really go through it. Whatever the case may be, I wanted to talk more about the broader prescriptions that we can take from this, because, the sadness on its own is not the entire story. Before we get to that, though, we have to talk about how she died, and more specifically, her parents. So it turns out that her dad in Saudi Arabia is not just a guy, but actually a Saudi government official, if you can believe it. Here's a LinkedIn profile. This probably does more to explain the the lengths that he was able to and willing to go to, leveraging the immigration status of his daughter in America, and using a fixer agency to sort of like manipulate her and bring her back over. So, Deputy Governor for Supervision at Saudi Central Bank. Now, I will admit I'm not super well read on this, but Deputy Governor for Supervision at Saudi Central Bank actually feels pretty important. That feels pretty high up, in my opinion. There's the guy, the murderer. At least one of them. There are a couple of murderers here. The Fixer Agency, which people have been very enthusiastically posting the details and address of online. No idea why they're doing that. It couldn't be me. The details have been leaked, of course. The person, Michael Pocalico, do you remember that person from the story? That's their actual name. It's not a fake name. Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer at Monticello Capital, that's great, named after a slave plantation, a boutique investment bank in Chantilly, Virginia, specializing in high-tech and green enterprises. Oh, okay. He's a Sarbanes-Oxley public company audit. Sorry, I don't know what that is. He's a piece of shit. Is if you if you run it through long enough. His firm is backed by the Heritage Foundation. Okay, am I misremembering? This guy is actually the grandchild of Bandera. Yeah. His paternal grandparents were Ukrainians who immigrated first to Canada, then to the U.S. His maternal grandparents were Hungarians who arrived in the United States at Ellis Island. His paternal grandmother was born in Galicia in the family of Ukrainian nationalist Bandera. This was the guy who worked with the Nazis against the Soviets, but then the Nazis didn't like him, and so it's Bandera, okay? He's been the central figure of all ultranationalist right-wing Ukrainian activity for the past century, basically. Yeah, basically a direct descendant of the apex figure of Ukrainian far right nationalism. So it's genetic. I don't know. Evil is I don't believe in genetic realism for anything. Race, I don't care. Evil does, however, seem to run generationally. I guess those values, they imprint the Hitler particles in high concentrations, like microplastic. It builds up in you and just keeps running down. So I'm looking at a document right now that was compiled by a few people who we'll talk about in a second, which is giving a significant amount of information on a lot of people relating to this. All three of the fixers, not just the literal descendant Banderite, also Bader the lawyer, the Saudi national who met Eden at that train station in Virginia, about whom it seems less is known, and also the company. Spec Inv, cybersecurity firm. This group, this is the fixing company. Never trust cybersecurity companies? True. A professional services firm. Oh, that's vague. And government contractor. Oh, cool. They have had government contracts in the investigations, intelligence, and cyber sectors. Cool. So why go over this at all? Look at their portfolio? Oh, let's look at their portfolio. What are we talking about? Oh, here we go. Here's a portfolio demonstrating their range and depth while preserving client confidentiality. Me Too Federal, a comprehensive, wide-ranging, culture-disrupting spec investigation probed sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, sexual assault, failure to report, executive leadership failure, and the establishment of a hostile work environment in a major federal organization. See, they're woke. I don't know what you guys are complaining about. It's all former Gulf War veterans, and now they get state intelligence contracts. Ah, well, the Banderite spirit continues. Michael Pocolico's Twitter was brigaded by hundreds of people. Oh, hundreds. I'm sure it was thousands. They've been busy. Look, I want to talk reality. I want to talk strategy. So, Eden's death has been confirmed. There's no two ways about it. And, I didn't know her. I didn't talk to her, so I can't, I don't want to cheapen the sincerity of people who did know her by participating in a kind of virtue signal mourning. If I don't know a person, I feel like a distinction has to be maintained. Many people did know and love her. Quite a few people, it seems. So certainly not lacking in that front. There are still, however, things to learn about here. So first of all, and a lot of this stuff goes without saying, obviously, forced detransition is death, or at the very least, akin to it. It often leads to it. People should live their lives authentically. It seems that by all reckoning, Eden was extremely happy being a lady. I think at some point she posted a picture of her current appearance versus her Saudi driver's license photo. I don't know if I should share. I don't know if it's in bad taste to share that. She's the estrogen is magic. And once you have your life and you understand what it means to live authentically in that respect, somebody taking that away from you, it is violence, severe violence. But you all knew that. I also want to talk strategy. Basically 0 seconds after Eden posted her suicide note, I was added to a group chat where very well-intentioned individuals began immediately trying to see, is she doing well? Is she safe? Can we confirm her well-being? Is there any info we can get? That kind of stuff. That was quite nice. I would hope that many of us, if we were in a desperate situation, would be able to say, you know, we could have a group of elite Twitter investigators immediately trying to ensure our well-being. It's because of that group that, to be fair, a small Twitter shitposting account, in the public eye, that's what she was, that her suicide has beget this enormous response. I mean, truly enormous. I really do. I don't see it right now because Twitter sucks, but I'm pretty sure I saw 250,000 tweets on that. That is insane. I have seen such a preposterous amount of attention brought to this, and I find it quite heartening. Like I said, I don't think it's healthy to disproportionately invest enormous amount of attention in all the sadness in the world that you can find. But if something good can come from it, if something meaningful or purposeful can be done, like, say, for example, ruining the lives of a collection of cybersecurity officials who took it upon themselves to act in behest of a Saudi government official to forcibly detransition and kidnap his daughter, like, hypothetically, or drawing more attention to the negative consequences of detransition broadly, or, hey, just being mean to Saudi Arabian government officials, which I have to assume, by and large, are pieces of shit. The post that Merrick made showing off the document that they've constructed has 3.4 million views, which is, I mean, that's a lot, Given the circumstances, that's quite a lot. I think the original post, unfortunately, made by Eden has quite a lot more than that as well. Obviously, it's pretty macabre, but it does... Wow, yeah. Whew. 28.1 million. Far, far, far more attention, I assure all of you, than most of us will get if we were to die today, tomorrow, or in 60 years. By orders of magnitude, 100, 1,000 times more. And this is heartening to me in large part because attention given in this sense is a matter of respect. There are some people who are looking at this and they see there are conservatives who are gloating about her death. It's true. Conservatives are subhuman. We know this, but they are by far the minority, no? You've seen, haven't you? I mean, in terms of proportional attention, not that long ago, the tragic death of a trans woman would have gotten a small core bit of support and overwhelming derision or disregard, right? Like, think back 1980, 1990, 2000, a trans woman dies. How likely do you think 28.1 million views, that on its own, far more than you could expect, but then a majority positive? That is a good sign. And yes, conservatives are subhuman. I know, we know this. But let's not focus on them, huh? Partly because I think a disproportionate focus on the negativity within the negativity is even more stupid than a disproportionate focus on the negativity to begin with. And also because, you're sort of misallocating the attention. If I were to die, first of all, many people would celebrate, but I do hope, pray to God, if such a thing were to happen, I, from beyond the grave, would much rather you all, sort of within your own circle, try to be a little positive and not like freak out about all of the people on the periphery. You could pour one out for me. Just, you don't want sweaty revenge? Wait, how did I die in this hypothetical? But I just assumed that I would have died in the way that I've always imagined that I will die, which is, I don't know, being taken out by a crack team of CIA operatives as soon as they decide I'm no longer useful to them. Choking on a chicken tendy. A horse, yeah, getting trampled by a horse. That's right. Lots of potential, lots of potential ways. I don't like calling it investigative journalism because I have a really high bar for that term, but the, let's say, sub-investigative, sub-journalism that's been done in that group chat that I was added to has been really excellent. It's also filled with people who knew Eden personally and a space for them to vent and to talk with others. Which is more than most people get under these circumstances. I mean, God, can you imagine several decades ago, something like this happens, a trans woman dies, their friends, their lovers mourn. Who do they talk to, right? I mean, 1983, you're trans, you have a trans girlfriend, your girlfriend dies. Who do you talk to about that? Most of the people you bring her up to would immediately dead name her, like on recollection, right? Like, oh, you mean this person? Oh, what happened? Oh, that sucks. Like, who do you talk to? Couldn't even imagine. I want to see this attitude, this strategy, taken more forcefully in the future, with as much effort as conservatives fill the airwaves with stories of a drag queen farted in the shower, or they looked at a toddler for a second and smiled in what they presume to be a predatory way. As much as conservatives fill our media space with shit like that, we must also fill it with our stories and with symbols of sympathy and consideration. You understand? And you can do so not just in a negative fashion, how sad it is they died, though it is certainly sad that she died, obviously, but also as an expression of cultural might, of hegemony, because only a culture with might could even come close to dominating cultural discourse for a time. Do you understand? Am I making my thoughts clear on this? A lot of people just want to be sad. That's fine. That's your right. It's a good thing to be sad about. There are far dumber things to be sad about than a person tragically dying. But we have to be principled. Sadness, total, inconsolable, life-ruining sadness, is something that has to be worked through. And one of the best ways to work through it is to focus on something productive. And I personally think it is highly productive and worthy of celebration that a single sad story like this could garner so much attention. And I want it to be used in the future. I want it to be cited. I want news stories. I believe The Independent has written a story on this. Am I correct on that? The Independent, I believe, wrote an article. Yes, that's correct. Oh, from 59 minutes ago. Saudi Arabian trans woman feared dead after posting suicide notes saying family had forced her to detransition. Blue hair and pronouns, like I said. Oh, we don't need to go through the whole story again. I mean, back in Saudi Arabia, her parents regularly searched her belongings and electronic devices while calling her a failure and an abomination, Miss Knight said. She tried staying on HRT by hiding her drugs, but was found out twice. The family did not respond to a request for comment. I am not surprised by that lack of comment. There might be more articles in the future, but if nothing else, this can serve as a future citation, something to point back to. Do you all understand what I'm getting at here? When your average normie, when your average dumb American, when your average bloated hog burger chugger thinks about what's being done to trans people, I want a collage of desperately sad stories to flash in their mind. In the same way that the narrative did eventually turn in favor of gay people in the AIDS epidemic, in the same way that for a long time, for a lot of people, like even mentioning 9/11 brings about this overwhelming wave of empathy. And it is stories like this that build that foundation, that build a castle of recognition. And that is essential if this is to not happen in the future. It's unfortunate that something as simple as the basic existence of people like Eden is something that has to be justified, that you have to strategize on how to build a case. Obviously, it shouldn't be that way. It's certainly not that way for me. Nobody's out there thinking, how do we best promote these ideas so that we can secure a future for the existence of straight white men? Well, actually, there are people who say that, but we don't agree with them politically. We think they have bad ideas. The secure future for white people, we don't like them. We do, however, unironically, need to secure a future for trans people in a very non-genocidal fashion. We are preventing the genocide here, ideally. And we need that empathy. We need those stories. Eden's story is very very empathetic. That's probably why it's garnered so much attention. She was not as popular as the response to her death has been, not by a long shot, which I think speaks to a need a lot of people are feeling, sort of a need for catharsis or for recognition. A reflection not only of the innate sympathy of this tragic story, but also of the collective desire that people have to give specific form to the general trauma and anxiety they're feeling about the state of trans existence. Does that make sense? I feel like that was about as clear a way as I can put it. Anyway, she really was funny. I never talked to her, but I saw a bunch of people posting her bangers, post-mortem, and I ended up recognizing quite a lot of them. And I don't even pay that much attention to Twitter. Do you all remember that trend for a little while where a bunch of people on Twitter had the sun icon emoji in their usernames. Like the weird son, the one that had the wiggly smiley face. And there were people saying that it was like a right-wing thing, and people who were saying no, it was. Well, they wouldn't say no, it wasn't. They would just post the sun emoji with the face. That was all Solaria, hence the name Sol Aria. That whole funny little era was a product of her shit posting. Yeah, exactly. Though it doesn't have the little smiley face. You know what I'm talking about. We'll see as more articles come out on this. Oh, I see one from MSN as well. Saudi Arabian trans woman. Yeah. I'm sure more will come out on this, but you know, in the meantime, try not to be too obsessively depressive if possible, okay? An unimaginable amount of suffering is happening right now to people you will never know or talk to, and a lot of good is happening too. There's just too much experience in the world for you to have it all, and to an extent, you choose what to focus on and what not to focus on. Not to say you should ignore sad stuff, just proportion things appropriately so you don't get yourself in a really bad headspace, because then you too are one of the sad things other people will feel sad about, and that's not productive to anyone. You know, don't sadness is to an extent a disease. Okay, you can everyone gets the sniffles now and again. Don't die though. Sorry if this is weird or anything, and feel free to ignore me or tell me to shut up. Jeez, preempt much. Do you know of any tips that might be useful to a purely hypothetical trans teenager living in the US who is not being allowed to transition, and if not, where she might go to find it? Yeah, that's a really specific thing. I'll say this, okay? I can't offer much in the way of specific advice. There might be people in the community who could, but I can't, and you should be careful with the advice that you take, because oftentimes advice online is bad advice. But I will say this much, okay? You're a trans teenager now. That's great. Congratulations. Oh, well, you know, you got so much of your life ahead of you. Never feel like it's too late. Because teenagers get that in their head, right? When I was 16, I was thinking like, oh man, I'll be 18 soon. And then it's like, oh, I'm old. I got to get a job. I was so anxious over that. And I'm cis. So if I was trans and thinking like, oh shit, well, okay, I'm running out of time to get on the puberty blockers. Then I got on the... Blah, blah, blah. You're not running out of time. Even if things go poorly and you have to stay in the closet, you have to hang back, you have to play it cautious for 1, 2, 3 more years, it's fine. You'll be fine. All right? Not saying that's going to happen or that it should happen or that there's nothing you can do. Only that worst case scenario is not as bad as it might seem sometimes. Living for a time under less than ideal circumstances, not good. But if you get a payoff, you get to be 18, 19, living your own, kablamo, transgender-defied, it's not too late. That's all I'm saying. You get me? We all agree? Also, not to be crass about it, but like the Twitter e-girls are absolutely packed with hotties who started transitioning in their early 20s. So again, it's really not, you know, it's get into Warhammer miniature. No, that's expensive. Get into woodwork. Nah, that's expensive. Go fishing. That's good. That's always good. Go fishing. And fishing's a little unethical, depending on how you do it. Draw? Transgendereds love to draw, because it's like an art thing. Emotions. Gay. Yeah, do that. I'm just really doomer-pilled about what the conservative response to this will be. Strategy. They want you dead. They wanted you dead yesterday. They'll want you dead tomorrow. What are you waiting on the response to confirm? What new information are you getting from that? You're dreading the response? Why? They're already the worst thing they can be. Thanks for covering this. Yeah, I don't like covering stuff that makes chat sad. Mostly because, you know, there are a lot of people in chat who are a lot more emotionally vulnerable than I am. I'm quite a bit more stoic than a lot of people in the community. So I'll read over something and just go like, in my mind, I'm just thinking like, yeah, this is sad. And then like people in chat are like sobbing. So this is me being autistic. You know, it's stoic. Yeah, I say stoic because of that really funny green text. You haven't seen it? Like it was like guy walking down the street, a bunch of teenagers approach him and say, "Hey man, you dropped your phone." And the guy looks down, the teenagers laugh and they're like, "No you didn't, idiot." And then the guy says, "Well, I'm not offended by your buffoonery, for I am a stoic." and they're like, "It's pronounced stoic, idiot," and then they burst out crying. That you're probably misremembering it. What are you talking about? I don't know. I don't know. Do we want to see Deniblo? Wow. We're just voguing, huh? Look at him. He's shaking. Yeah, he's a wiggly baby. See? Is he always cold? Nah, he's just wiggly. Come here, you. Here, look at this adorable video that I caught of him sneezing. Look at this good video.
Mm-hmm.
Look at him.
Mm-hmm.